I can. It's feedback. I can.
What about now?
I can still hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
good.
Yeah, working.
So Chris, we're going to do the opening portion of our meeting, and then we're going to move some new business, so you'll be right at the lead of that. So this will take us a few minutes.
He's,
So you know we'd like to get started?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
we ready, Will? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And there are two members of the council who are excused today, Mr. Jerry Morris and Mr. Patrick Shepley. Other than that, everyone is here. Town Manager Cliff Gravier, Assistant Town Manager Terry Tiemann, our Town Clerk Molly Daisy, and our IT person Will Wharton are here as well. Would you all stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda, and I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda and move item C, which is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on the an amendment to the proposed fiscal year 2023 budget relating to the 30% study for the Loop Canal Dam. I'd like to move that as item A under new business in deference to Mr. Chris Brooks' time. I have made a motion. Anybody second?
So moved. Oh, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Then the next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the workshop and special meeting held on February 14th, 2022. You have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held on February 18th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
The next item on the agenda is approval of the financial report, and Mr. Fry will give that report today.
Mayor, this report covers the budget through February 28th, 2022. We are 92% through the fiscal year of 2022. The operating budget revenue, we have collected 119.6% of the budgeted revenue, compared to 93.6% at this time last year. Expenses, we expended 84.9% of our budgeted amount, compared to 80.1% at this time last year. Recognizing that this report is subject to audit, I respectfully move that the council accept and approve this unaudited report.
Thank you, Mr. Fry. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is, anyone have any announcements? Okay, does anyone from the public wish to say anything or comment on something that's not on the agenda today? Yes? Please use the microphone and identify yourself. Right up there. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Mary Regan. This is the first time I've attended.
Your address, please?
606 Delaware Court in Bethany Beach, Bethany West. And I have some concerns about the traffic situation at the rear entrance of Bethany West regarding the diner. I'm not sure what the procedure is, but I wanted to attend to possibly discuss that at the end.
We have been working with our engineer on a solution to that situation. He's given us a concept that we think will work to help take care of some of the concerns that you have and we have regarding safety at the intersection. However, he's having some issues with his own staffing, and he's not been able to give us that plan yet. As soon as we have a plan, we are going to take care of the intersection.
Great, okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your comment today. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a report from the Planning and Zoning Commission, and Mr. Gong is here.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor. First, I want to apologize for still being in my St. Patrick's Day outfit from last night. Dense fog on the bridge.
Thank you for gracing us with your presence today.
You're welcome. The Planning Commission met last month. We had a petition to partition 857 Garfield Parkway, which after discussion and review was unanimously approved, the partition into 2 lots, unanimously approved conditionally, subject to the removal of the existing building within the next 6 months. We continued our discussions about the comprehensive plan and put some items on the agenda for our tomorrow's meeting related to various environmental initiatives. And so we meet tomorrow. We'll continue our review of the plan and talk about environmental issues and a change to the membership of the Non-Residential Design Review Committee. No other questions. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Gong.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Okay, the next item on the agenda is report from the Non-Residential Design Review Committee. Mr. Kilmer.
Thank you, Mayor. The committee met on the 4th of March. Mr. Jeff Osias, is that his name? He's the owner of Off the Hook Restaurant, recently expanded his restaurant by taking over the adjacent retail space. The new front facade now measures 40 foot long. AdArt, the applicant, is got approved for a new sign to be located on the wall centered above the width of the new combined businesses. So it'll be right in the middle of the 2 businesses. The proposed sign is an internally lit illuminated box sign. It measures 28 inches by 240 inches. The new business sign has a white background with black lettering with a narrow black trim running around the outer edge of the entire sign. The wall sign totally conforms to both the Non-Residential Design Review Committee guidelines as well as the town code, and it was approved by the committee. That's my report.
I wasn't aware that Osias was on Off the Hook.
What's that?
I wasn't aware of that.
Yes, he is.
Oh, okay. Thank you. There is no, are there any questions? All right. There's no report from the Budget and Finance Committee. The next report is from the Town Manager, Mr. Gravier.
Mayor, Council, the process for installation of our pedestrian warning lights is winding down. The last one that DelDOT has agreed to work with us to install is at Ashwood Street and Route 1. That was not done last year because some technical problems and having to do some realignment with the swales and the crosswalk to make it work there at that intersection. DelDOT has agreed to work with us if we have our engineer do the design layout And at this time, unfortunately, DelDOT doesn't have the wherewithal to fund that for us. The estimate for that work, if it moves forward here in the next few months, would be approximately $90,000. It would be the realignment of the intersection, the striping of the intersection, and the installation of a pedestrian crosswalk light. We're hoping to have permission and be able to go ahead with that sometime in late spring or early summer. But that's a long time coming, and that's the final site that DelDOT identified that we should have or could have a pedestrian crossing light. We have wrestled for a number of years with the installation of 5G poles as we all anticipate 5G cellular coming to this service area. We have very little that we can do to push back or talk to or work with service providers like Verizon or AT&T or whoever in terms of the number of poles that will be installed and what those poles might look like. We are going to have our first camouflage pole installed at the North Alley, the end of the North Alley on Garfield Parkway, at the right alongside of Dickey's frozen custard. And I've included a picture in your briefing material of what that camouflage pole looks like, and you'll see that you can hardly notice it.
Is that sarcasm or?
That's sarcasm, yes. It's unfortunately, it's a,
I wouldn't know it was a pole.
right, that's it. So it looks like a large, tall, black can with a can at the base and another can at the top. But by industry standards, that is equivalent to camouflage. And in doing that, then the provider meets all of his criteria for working with the town to try to disguise the pole. Unfortunately, this is coming to us probably more quickly than we would like. So, but that's our very first one, and I think it's worth
What
noting.
does a non-camouflage pole look like?
Well, they blend in with the wooden poles that are already in town. We have been working now for some time with Comcast, and many people in the community are waiting breathlessly to be able to turn off MediaCom and hook their systems up to Comcast. We've had a number of issues, though, with the Comcast install, not the least of which is over a dozen water main breaks during their installation here to date. Comcast wants to work through the summer, and we have met with their representatives to have a discussion about them doing that. We don't want to have the problem of having their work crews on the street and at the same time dealing with dozens of water leaks. Comcast has promised us they'll redouble their efforts to complete work here in Bethany as quickly as they can, and they'll try to work at a higher level in terms of being more careful over our water lines. But we do want them to come in, we do want them to complete their work and be able to offer and provide service. Mr. Fry's neighbor has just received a flyer and been able to connect to Comcast, which isn't something we thought Comcast was going to be able to do, but the neighbor's property is adjacent to Garfield Parkway, and they have run cable down Garfield Parkway. So we were told that it would be, at one point in time, there would be a switch on and the community would go live, but apparently they are offering it in some kind of a piecemeal form. So we have called the company, we've called their government representative to have some clarification there, and he's not gotten back to us yet. But that's a positive
So
thing
that's
for us.
a one setup, a one residential setup.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all we know about at the time, so.
Must be one hell of a bill.
Charging stations are something we're trying to work, electric vehicle charging stations are something we're trying to integrate into the community. We installed 4 stations with a total of, that would be 8 individual cables for charging in downtown Bethany, and I had spoken to the council about potentially putting something at the north and south end of Pennsylvania Avenue, some charging stations. But because of some of our experiences that we've had downtown related to the cable not being coiled and some other issues, I think we've made a decision here not to install charging stations in residential areas, and not the least of which of the problem is the sort of board you would need, an electric setup that's a bit of an eyesore that we would have to somehow meld into a residential area also. But what we are going to do, and move ahead, I believe, here in the next few weeks, is the preliminary work needed to put charging stations, level 3 charging stations, and those are the stations that charge at a much quicker and higher rate than the ones we have downtown already, in the parking lot alongside of the Blue Crab. And that will be part of what we might do as we blacktop the lot, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So there would be 4 charging stations with a total of 8 cables, individual charging cables there, and that would be our plan. The museum is just about ready to open, finally. In some of your pictures, you'll see a model that was just done of the Alley May. The Alley May is the boat that used to bring people into Bethany in 1901, 1902, down the Asselman and up the Loop Canal. The model is dead on and will be installed in the museum here in the next couple of weeks. In addition, the new museum sign will also be installed, and the Cultural and Historic Affairs Committee tells us that they plan on a museum opening in the end of April. Citizens should not be alarmed, Mayor, Council. April 4th to April 8th, the National Guard will be conducting a training exercise in Bethany Beach, and their officers will be wearing white hazmat suits and driving their Humvees throughout the town as part of the exercise. So white hazmat suits, Humvees, just another day here, so.
Are we going to put out something?
We'll put something out, yes.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. We're under attack.
Ukraine flags or...
I think it's Ghostbusters.
And Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Gravier. Any questions, comments? Okay. All right, the first item on the agenda will be discussion, consideration, and possible vote on an amendment to the proposed fiscal year 2023 budget, adding $251,000 to the general fund capital budget for preliminary engineering of the Loop Canal Dam and decreasing the general fund capital reserve by a like amount. Mr. Gravier.
Mayor, Council, this is simply a supplement to the budget, but I'd like to take this opportunity to have Mr. Chris Brooks, who is the principal working on the construction of our dam, brief the council on what it is we're talking about for those that may have missed in our earlier meeting with the Stormwater Committee, where he gave a more detailed briefing. But he's going to go over essentially what the dam can do for us, the impacts here in Bethany, and that is what leads us into moving ahead then with our 30% plan, which is what we would move to approve here with this budget supplement. Chris?
Okay, allow me to share my screen. Hopefully this will work out. So, go through, everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go through just a brief summary of the engineering and the preliminary analysis that led us to where we are relative to the Loop Canal Dam. So, Cormac-Taylor performed what's known as a two-dimensional HEC-RAS analysis to look at the tidal flow as it relates to the Asselwoman Canal at both ends, tidally exposed, the Loop Canal, and then the system consisting of the salt pond and several natural channels that connect it to the north to Indian River. The map you see on the left here is identifying some of the structures which were included in this hydraulic model. I won't get too far in the weeds with this, but suffice to say that the area that you see on the map here is largely covered by the model, and as I noted, it includes tidal flow coming into Asselwoman Canal both from the north and from the south. We started off looking at several different tidal events to see which one would be the best to model. We landed on an event from April 4th, 2020. However, we wanted to look at larger storm events that have recent data, so what we did was took the shape of that tidal event that you see in the bottom of the graph, and we added elevation to it, 1 foot, 1.5 feet, and 2 feet. This allowed us to model dam could benefit the community, but we also looked at what impact it might have on the Assateague Canal as the potential for the water surface going up in the Assateague Canal potentially could impact ocean view in other parts of the community. So I'm actually just going to run through this video again, now that you kind of know what you're looking at to see what's happening here. So again, you see the canal colors getting darker, and then you see that those darker colors translating into Bethany Beach without the dam. With the dam, the floodplain stays lower and the extent does not spread the way that it does on the right. And this carries us through an entire tidal cycle of 24 hours. And when you kind of land at the end here, you know, the most notable thing you can see under existing conditions, this 50-year event, elevations of the water surface are close to 3 feet throughout much of the community. Without the dam in place, over here on the right side with the dam in place, those elevations stay closer to a foot. And this is based on putting the dam up when the tide is at an elevation of 1.3 feet. The tide can actually go up, the dam can actually go up at a lower elevation, which would result in even less extent of floodplain here. Now I'm going to go back to the presentation here. So the Assateague Canal, we wanted to look at what the impacts would be. So these lines represent, the darker line is existing and the lighter line is proposed. For the different storm events that we looked at, how much of a change in the water surface in the Assateague Canal occurred. And the answer to that is in the most significant change. This graph on the right represents in tenths of a foot how much change. See the design storm, the David +1, which is that 50-year event, has an increase in water surface of about 0.6 of a foot. For the larger storms, that increase is actually less because the water begins to overtop the dam. But we felt it important to look at that. We knew that it would have some impact. We wouldn't know without running the model. So the second question became, okay, well that 0.6 of a foot increase, how much does that impact the properties along the canal? So we did some analysis, particularly relative to ocean view, who had concerns in this regard. And what you can see in these graphics is a change between the green and red, which is that 0.6. So although you are getting deeper, the good news is, although there is a little bit more water in the ditches, is that during this design storm, you're not seeing any impact to new structures in the floodplain or things of that nature. We're really talking about just the water getting a little bit deeper and a little bit wider in some of these channels here. So that was another aspect that this model was intended to determine. So the next thing we looked at is we wanted to see, since closing off the loop canal with this dam meant that we were essentially creating a closed system whereby water that runs off is not able to get out into the Assateague and eventually into the ocean. Would this create a problem with withholding rainfall? So we looked at a number of more frequent storm events, the 1, 2, and 5-year storm events you can see here. You know, these are 2 to 3 to 4.5 or so inches of rain in a day. And did the calculations of runoff within the area you see. Basically everything that you see shaded in color in this map ultimately out a 5-year, 4.5 inches of rain with the dam closed. But one thing we also looked at is, well, what if we put the dam up at a lower elevation instead of 1.3 feet, which was kind of conservative? What if we close the dam when the tide is low at a 1/2 foot? And what we found in that is we create a lot more storage around the canal and the salt pond, such that that rain actually has a place to go and the overall water surfaces are lowered. So, in addition to preventing frequent tidally based flood events, the dam also has the ability, by keeping the tide out, to create more storage in the area to capture rainfall runoff and have some positive impact on rainfall-based flooding. This is just a graphic of the difference between starting the dam at 1.3 foot tidal elevation, which is the green, or if we started the dam and when the tide was low at a 1/2 foot, then you see the extent being blue, which again is lower. So, the overall effect is, we felt we can contain tidal surges up to a 50-year tidal event from creating tidally based flooding in the community, and in addition, create some improvement during rainfall conditions. Are there any questions?
Chris, when we talk about what this would have prevented over the last several years, if the dam was installed and activated, we would have eliminated all the flooding that we have seen here in the community over the last 3 or 4 years?
I think, if I heard you correctly, it's a little muffled, but we would be essentially preventing all of the tidal-based sunny day and storm-based flooding that's occurred in the area that's bounded by Garfield Parkway to the south, all the way up to the north by the inlets there. Back to the first page here. So we're basically talking about everything from here all the way up through here. We would be preventing that issue from occurring. That includes Fred Ellison Road. The project would also include this flat gate to the north that would prevent the water from coming down through this channel during the high tide. Now, what the project doesn't do, of course, note that there are a lot of just localized drainage issues associated with storm drains and runoff in low-lying areas. This doesn't have an impact on improving those localized drainage, but it does create potentially more storage for overall runoff that collects in the salt pond and canal.
I have a question also. Does the bladder dam have any impact on people navigating down the loop canal with their boats or?
I'm sorry, the audio on my end is not really good. It's very echoey. I'm having a hard time hearing.
Does the bladder dam have an impact on people's ability to go down to the loop canal using a boat?
Oh, okay, great question. So the dam itself, when it's not engaged, will lie flat on the bottom of the canal. I believe it would be a negative 3-foot elevation to NAVB 88 datum. So the goal would be to not prevent boat traffic from being able to get in and out of the canal. We'll need to work with the manufacturer to make sure that that width is addressed, since it's not one continuous dam all the way across. It consists of multiple panels. But these panels do lie flat and not engaged, allowing watercraft to go over them.
Thank you.
For years, we have described what we're talking about installing here as a bladder dam, and that's a bit of a misnomer. It's really a flap gate, and we probably need to start referring to it as a flap gate. The bladder actuates the flap, but it's not what essentially makes the dam. So it's a flap gate type of apparatus.
Yes, that's an excellent point, Cliff. It really is more of a steel gate, and what the bladder does is enable it to be actuated in a way that doesn't get interfered with by the salt or the sand in a way that maybe, say, like a hydraulic piston or something would not work so well in a tidal environment. The bladder dam that pushes the steel gate up and over the
Chris, we have someone from the audience who wants to ask a question.
John Gahn, 676 Collins Street. I'm interested in knowing how the dam will be activated. Is it an automated system, or does someone have to be monitoring this? How's it going to work that way?
It actually, it can be done either way, in fact. It will be up to, the town and perhaps the Corps of Engineers as well to have input. The way that it's manufactured, there are systems that can monitor the tide and actuate the dam automatically, or the dam can be actuated manually by a town employee, or a combination of both. So all of those options exist.
Thank you very much.
Scott?
You noted that you studied rain events of 1, 2, and 5 years with the dam in place. Did you study what happens with a 50-year rain event, or am I misreading that?
We didn't study the higher rain events, largely for the fact that we know, based on the flat nature of the town, when you're getting a 50 or 100-year rain event, you're going to have widespread surface flooding occurring no matter what. Regardless of whether we can keep the dam out that runoff, it's going to be an issue. Now, we absolutely can look at that. It's not a difficult thing to add to the analysis, but knowing that under such a scenario, a lot of flooding is going to occur, and we didn't focus on that part of it.
Chris, you had talked about the highest that the water in the canal would reach before it overtopped at 3 feet was 0.6 feet or 7 inches, and then after that it would start to decrease on the Assawoman side. Is that correct?
Yes, I wanted to be clear about that. What will decrease is the amount of increase, if that makes sense. So when the water is right at the top of the dam, the increase experienced in the Assawoman would be 0.62 feet. When the water is 1 foot over the dam and is then flowing, then that increase is only about 0.4 of a foot, because at that point, some of the water that will be backing up in the Assawoman is now over the dam, so it becomes less. Though it's still an overall higher elevation. Gotcha. I know that's a little bit confusing the way it's worded, but I want to make sure that everyone understands that.
No, thank you, that's clear. Is anyone else? Anyone from the audience? Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much.
It's very helpful, very informative.
Okay, everybody have a good weekend.
And-
Take care.
Thank
And
you.
You too. Do you have anything to add?
No, Mayor. Only that if the council would like to proceed with the 30% plan,
Right.
that a motion to move forward with that to supplement the budget for an amount of $251,500 to go to the general fund capital budget and reducing our general fund capital reserve by a similar amount.
And just to clarify that too, the 30% plan contains a great deal of, a number of studies and also public input. And if it's conducted in the right way, that Mr. Brooks has said that we may not need a 60% plan, this may cover a lot of that.
The plan is not to have a 60 or 65%, that we would include that in the 30% plan.
Right.
That would include constructability, and it would include the public comment portion of whatever permitting might be needed.
Okay. And there'll be environmental studies too,
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. So it's quite extensive. Do we have a motion? Mrs. Denault?
I move that the council approve the 30% plan to add $251,000 to our general fund capital budget as proposed. My question is, how is that going to affect? This is in addition to?
Would simply decrease our reserve. Our reserve is about
It's
$1.5
from the
million
reserve
over
funds.
our set amount for that reserve at this point in time.
Don't forget to use your
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, are there any comments, questions? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. One thing, too, that we would add is that we're also seeking grant money for some of these proposals as well, which could be retroactively applied.
Yes, we're in the process of looking at a grant that does have the ability to be funded retroactively. We're not sure how that's going to work out, but this, I think, has reached the point where we should begin to move forward and take it to the next step. So,
I think we all agree with that. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Gravier. The next item on the agenda is the first item, discussion, consideration, and possible vote on adjustments to fiscal year 2022 special fund budget to match the grant funds that were actually received. Mr. Kilmer.
Yes, Janet, could you help us with that, please? Thank you.
Hello. Every year, the town applies for grants from federal, state, and other sources. And the fiscal year 2020 budget, which we're talking of amending now, was prepared over a year ago using estimates of the minimum amount of grant funds we expected to receive. The grant funds that were actually awarded to the town exceeded those estimates by $136,438. This amendment will adjust both the revenue and the expense of the town's special fund in order to match the grant funds we actually received.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You might as well stay there. Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we adjust the fiscal 2022 special fund budget to match our grant funds actually received.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion, any questions, Mrs. Connery? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you, Mrs. Connery. The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on a supplement to the fiscal year 2022 general fund capital budget of $239,000 for previously approved land purchase and $7,000 for a previously approved vehicle purchase. Mr. Kilmer.
Janet, could you also assist me on that?
Okay, well, we have two amendments to our capital budget here. The land purchase was approved by town council back in April 2021, but the budget was not amended at that time, so we're doing that right now before the fiscal year ends. And that was for the purchase of the 2.7 acres of unimproved land at Hudson Street and 2nd Street, or 2nd Avenue and Hudson Ave, you know what I'm saying. Anyway, that land was purchased this year, and the second part of the amendment is the budget included $15,000 for the purchase of a used vehicle for administrative uses. However, vehicle prices were much higher than anticipated due to the pandemic. The vehicle purchased was a 2018 Chevy Equinox for a little over $21,000, so we need to amend the budget to compensate for the higher prices.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
Incredible that these times have changed as far as that.
Do we have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we adjust the,
Supplement.
the supplement to the fiscal year 2022 general fund capital budget of $239,000 for previously approved land purchase and $7 for previously approved vehicle purchase.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on a budget for fiscal year 2023 and a schedule of fees. Let me guess. Mr. Kilmer?
Yes. I do miss our other council person who's not here. Will you also help with that? Please, thank you. Mr. Shepherd, yes.
Okay, so the budget for the coming year, which starts on April 1st. The Budget and Finance Committee recommends approval of the 2023 budget. The budget's been available to the public on the town's website and here at Town Hall. A public hearing was held on Monday. The proposed budget includes $11,507,000 in revenue, $9,864,000 in operating costs, $596,000 in capital projects, and when you make your motion, if you're including the 251 you're approving today, that's in addition to the 596 in the proposed budget here, and then 246,000 in debt repayments. And there is an increase to trash fees included in this budget.
So just for clarification, for the capital projects, it would be 847? Or,
Yes.
okay, thank you. Do we have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion dealing with the vote on the budget of fiscal year 2023 and the scheduled fees.
That we approve it.
That we approve.
Second.
Mrs. Denault seconded. Any questions or comments? We've been through the budget pretty extensively with the Budget and Finance Committee over the past few meetings, but any additional questions? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Oh, excuse me, I forgot to ask, does anyone in the audience have any comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Connery. The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on awarding concessions for exercise classes to be held during the summer season on the beach. Mr. Gravier.
Mayor, Council, the process that defines that we need to have a concession process for beach activities like yoga and such is in our code, and it's there to prevent us from having too many people competing and too many people on the boards of the beach at the same time. This year, however, in saying that, we have 7 different applicants, and Julie Molesky, our events coordinator, has put together a calendar that shows you that there is no conflict there. There is one thing that will be unusual if we approve these all 7 vendors. 2 or 3 of them would like to do yoga on the park. So that would be a change for us. Actually, concessions aren't even required for the park, but we have them here in the process. So a motion, if you would like to go ahead with these 7 different concession awards for the summer of '22. One is for Demetria Yoga. Second is Beach Pilates and Wellness. The third is New Logic Marine Science Corporation, and that's a science camp. Fourth is Coastal Athlete. The 5th is Custom Fit 360. The 6th is Bethany Beach Yoga Center, and the 7th is Ocean Vayu Yoga.
And we also have that marine science camp, too.
Yes, I mentioned the camp.
And most of these are return,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
okay. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we pass and accept the proposals from the 7, I think it was.
Yes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I have one question, Mr. Gravier. If we're going to start or allowing them to use the park, could we stipulate maybe that they stay away from the homes and do it more towards the outside, or is there going to be any restriction on that?
Certainly, we can
Yeah,
make that request.
okay. Yeah, I just noticed that because one was going to have some music, too,
Yeah.
at 7 o'clock in the morning.
But it's better than the rock bands that are
Yeah,
going to play
right,
at the
right,
pavilion,
right.
yes.
And
Okay.
yogas make all those noises, too.
Yeah, grunts.
Yeah, right. Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Does anyone in the audience have a comment on that? I'm sorry, I forgot to ask. Okay, thank you. Okay, now we have discussion, consideration, and possible vote to pave the town public parking lot in the 200 block of Garfield Parkway. Mr. Gravier.
This is more informational than the approval for the funding, because the funding is within the limits of what the town manager can move forward with. The lot alongside of the Blue Crab parking lot to the east of this building, we've owned it now for several years. And initially, it was our hope to be able to do something with some sort of a pervious surface as opposed to blacktopping the lot. But time has proven to us that a pervious surface is not going to work in that lot. The crush and run that we've used as a base is compacted to the point that it's no longer a pervious material. Even though you see the larger stone at the top, what's compacted underneath makes it just like concrete or blacktop. We've looked at a number of different things we could do. One of them is do a pervious blacktop as we did on South Atlantic, but we have found out from hard experience that that does not work because during the summer when people are turning the wheels on that type of material, it scours it. And we are just going to be a couple of years away from having to resurface some of those parking spaces. So pervious pavement, even though it would cost about $150,000, isn't going to be the solution for what we can do with the lot. The other thought we had was, could we use a large concrete open paver? You see some of them behind large buildings, like a Walmart or something, where their tractor trailers park, and then use a pathway of blacktop through it. And our engineer estimates that sort of work and precision to lay the blacktop and the pavers would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $400,000. As opposed to blacktopping the lot, which is a little over $30,000. So I'd like a motion, if you would, to proceed with paving it with the understanding why we aren't doing or looking at an alternative.
Do you have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the paving of the town public parking lot in the 200 block of Garfield Parkway.
Have a second?
A second.
Any questions, comments? Anyone from, oh, go ahead, Scott.
I do understand the issue with the cost. I have to say that I'd be opposed to paving it with just blacktop. I mean, it's kind of in direct conflict with what we've been working on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I think I see all our Planning and Zoning Commissioners nodding their heads. We'd be taking a pretty large area that's currently, I mean, I understand that it's impervious, but it could be pervious if it was rehabilitated. I'm talking out of school a little bit here, so I understand that. I hate to be contrarian, but it just feels like we're taking a large area that could be pervious and flattening it out and making it impervious. Kind of in direct opposition to what we've been working on and asking our residents to do, which we understand is going to cost them more money. So I think I understand the reasons why it needs to be paved, but I just see it as a parking lot that doesn't get used very often. It gets used often in the summer, and it gets used, and it's necessary for the farmers market and things like that. But the reason, like the Walmart parking lots are paved that way is because you take an area that isn't really used for parking 100% of the time, and you allow it to still be some pervious area. So I'm going in circles here, but I just feel like it may be worth considering spending more money on it.
Well, I believe that the $400,000 option is probably something that would be over the top.
Yeah.
For the benefit, especially because this is in an area that does not flood in Bethany Beach. That parking lot, Garfield, is never an issue with flooding for us. We've explored what would be a possible solution for us, which is the pervious pavement, which would mean we would reclaim, take everything that's there, pull it up, and then put something down for $150,000 that's not going to suit the application for the parking lot. So we've asked our engineers for solutions. Your planning commission has wrestled with it. I don't know if you've come up with surfaces that could lend itself to this application, and it is heavily used in the summer. So our issue with is if we could just leave it the way it is, we can't. We're constantly trying to restone it and regrade it because it deteriorates very quickly with the stone moving. Creates a problem for people walking on it, creates a problem for the farmers market. And I understand. I mean, it's something we've wrestled with, but if we had a better solution, I think we'd offer the solution for sure.
Does anybody from the audience have something? Mr. Gong?
John Gahn, 676 Collins. I'm speaking as a resident, not as a member of the Planning Commission. I understand, I heard the debate, but from a citizen standpoint, it doesn't compute for me. We are working diligently at trying to accommodate changes to the climate and so forth. And to now say, well, we're asking people in the community to do something, but we can't do that here, and we're going to pave it. That, to me, will be viewed as hypocritical by some people. And the option is we can leave it just the way it is and put up with what we have to do about regrading and all. But I really, as a resident, don't understand or would not agree with approval of making that impervious surface.
Mayor, if I may? So as you look at the lot, again, you think it's pervious because it has stone on it. It's not. It's not. It is, the crush and run is compacted. It's just as if it was concrete or blacktop as it sits. So it's what would we say? We're virtue signaling by not taking care of a problem that exists, and it's not a pervious surface.
Well, then I would suggest, if you want to do that, that you schedule a public hearing and you allow people in the community who might think like I that it is a pervious surface and it's not, to explain it to them and get them to agree to do it. But I find it on the surface as counter to what we are trying to do in terms of recognizing a changing climate. Thank you.
Just to turn that around a little bit, I mean, I do think there's some importance in virtue signaling. I mean, it's what we're saying our residents are going to have to do when we pass these. I think they're up here to talk about. So I recognize that it's not pervious now. I do appreciate that. I recognize that it is heavily used in the summer, and I understand the reasons to pass it. I just think I would view it personally as hypocritical if I voted for it, given that I'm working hard to make sure that residents can't do what we're about to do.
In your discussions and your work in planning, have you developed some sort of, do you have any ideas what might work in the parking lot?
I mean, you know, what the challenge is that's not what we've been trying to do, you know, because you're talking about low use, low scale type things like in a someone's driveway. And so you don't have the issues that we obviously have on Atlantic Avenue with people turning their tires and things like that. And I often recognize when we're in sort of a no-win situation, and so I appreciate what you're saying. I do get it. You know, I know that like down in West Ocean City, the like Chipotle, Chick-fil-A area, that they all have like the pervious concrete. I don't know how well it's held up, and I don't know what it costs. I just hate to see a big gravel parking lot turn into a stretch of pavement. And one of the reasons I hate to see it is because we have the opportunity to do something different with it now, even if it costs more money. But as soon as you pave it, then it's paved, and everyone you'll just repave it and repave it and repave it, and it's sort of, you know, this is the line, kind of right here. So this is my personal opinion, and I understand why other people would vote for it, and I understand the need for it. I just think the 5 of us on the Planning and Zoning Commission have pounded our fist and said no one can have impervious paving, and now we're going to do it in the town.
Diane Fogash, on 358 Sandpiper Drive. Yes, the Planning Commission, as we were discussing this, what we were planning on doing is the fact that if anyone already has a pervious system, that they need to repair it, that if it's more than 50%, it would have to be made impervious. So if this area is going to be completely redone, then that would go against what we're trying to do for residents.
Well, I can tell you that Public Works has offered, or this is an issue for Public Works, and what they've suggested as an alternative is to pave the back half of the lot, which goes to what you're speaking to, but again, doesn't take care of the other problems with grading and the movement of the stone, and then eventually would quickly deteriorate the blacktop that abuts the stone. So we've looked at it every which way we could, and again, gone to our engineers to give us a surface and with something that we could construct that would be a reasonable cost. So from our perspective, when we proposed this, was the cost of doing business in a parking lot that generates a tremendous amount of resources for the community. So.
Well, are there challenges with just understanding again that it's not currently pervious, but could we just keep rehabilitating the current gravel without, and like waiting until another product is available that actually works for what we're trying to do at a cost that works?
You can call Brett and you can tell him.
I'll tell him. I'll tell him. Let him pet my
Certainly,
dog.
we can continue to do what we're doing,
Yeah,
forever. So,
Yeah.
but it's how practical is it for us? So.
yeah, I understand.
But I think a big concern for the average property owner here would be the differential in the cost. 400,000 versus 30,000. I don't think a lot of people would be very happy about for a little parking space to pay that amount of money when it could be achieved in that. We're all talking about an area that typically doesn't have an issue. I know we're asking, the residents to sit there when they do something to make it pervious, but they're not paying those kinds of costs for paving a relatively small area. So.
Yeah,
just
I
a
mean,
thought.
if you ask my mom, she'll tell you I'll argue something to death. So I don't want to be doing that. But I mean, we are asking people in, say, Bethany West to do the same thing. They don't really have an issue that people on the the north side of Garfield Parkway have, in the ways that so it's not just flooding. It is runoff. If you have like oils from cars going onto pavement, and the only place they're going is directly into the street, into the gutter, and into the loop canal, and polluting waterways. So I realize we're not going to save the planet here. I just think there's more than just infiltration of rainwater, of stormwater. That's the issue. So again, I also agree, going from 30,000 to 400,000 is a logical leap that would be very difficult to make, and we do have to be practical about it. I understand that.
The 150 alternative, again, will be a surface for us that it will just, eventually we'll have to coat the top to make it impervious so it holds up for the turning for the parking, so.
Yeah.
Well, the difference, if I heard John Gong right, he was going to pay the difference.
Well, it's the day after St. Patrick's Day, so.
You mean after we reassess his property, you mean?
It is a conundrum.
Did you have, you talked about Pervious Concrete as an option.
There is pervious concrete. I'm not an expert on this stuff, so I know that I obviously see the impacts of the pervious asphalt and how it doesn't hold up very, very well in certain areas. I understand the pervious pavers do hold up really well, but they are really expensive because they require a lot more man hours to install. Pervious concrete's somewhere in between, but I don't know how well it holds up. So it would be a question for the town engineers in terms of cost and.
Certainly we'll explore it.
I'm sorry?
So we'll explore it.
Would that be okay,
Sure.
as an option?
Yes.
Okay. So why don't we defer this until we have, table this until we have more information, and perhaps do it when we have a full council?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it will be instructive, too, because I think that the pervious surface ordinance that's going to be put forth by planning and zoning will have to require a public hearing as well. So perhaps we could, gather some more thoughts in that process, too. Does anyone have anything to add to this before we go to the next item? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Edmondson. Thank you, Mr. Gravier.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, the next three items on the agenda are GH and I are related. Basically, to amend the town ordinance, Section 486, 21A4, changing from 4 inches to 3 inches, limbs that may be removed. And this is for the recycling items. And do we want to do these together, Mr. Gravier, or
Yes,
just to save time?
They are related, yes.
Yeah, they are related, the three of them. And the second one would be to amend the ordinance at 486-21A5 regarding logs by removing it entirely from an item that can be put into recycle, and adding logs to the list of items that are not acceptable under Section 486-21C4. And Mr. Gravier?
These items have been brought to us by the Public Works Department. They've been the subject of discussion here at council meetings and at a workshop, well vetted, and have been on our website for a good almost 2 months now. So what we'll do, if the council moves forward with this first reading, and if you're handling it as a first reading, is we'll go ahead and anticipate that it'll pass the second, and we'll insert an insert in our calendar so everyone in Bethany is aware of the change. That was a concern the last time we discussed it at the council table. So if the council would like to move ahead with a motion on all 3 items and all 3 changes, we will work on that.
And I would ask maybe if council also would like to elect to waive the first reading under Chapter 45-5 of the Town Code, because we're going to be going forward with this. And we've had it at a workshop and everything too, so perhaps we could waive the first reading and just go to second, if that's all right with everyone.
I agree with that.
Okay,
Again,
so who wants to make a motion?
As Mr. Gravier was talking, this is not something new. It's been on our
Yes.
website for a considerable amount of time, had an opportunity for people to look at it and to read it. And also, it's been an ongoing issue that we're finally addressing.
Could I have a motion then? To approve the change?
I make a motion that we approve all the proposed changes to Town Ordinance 486-21A4, 486-21A5, and 486-21C4 as listed on our agenda,
And waive the first reading.
and waive the first reading.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any questions, discussion?
I do have a question, too. Does that mean we're doing the second reading right now?
Yes.
So then if we vote on it today, it's approved?
It's approved.
Okay, so I guess the only question I would have is anyone here to actually talk about it? Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, didn't mean to steal your thunder.
No.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any comments? Questions from the audience? No, we had gone through this too at the workshop, and I think we've posted something alerting people to it on the website, and we're going to be putting it out. And it's been a problem because people have cut up trees and put out trees to be taken away, and it's just...
Forests, they put out forests.
They've cut up
Yeah,
forests, yes. Yeah,
literally.
Really.
I mean, they've abused the system.
Yeah. So this is just to save our employees and any kind of disability payments that we have to make.
Also to address where somebody says, well, where does it say I can't do this?
Right, exactly.
So, yeah.
Okay. Anyone from the audience? Okay, and no more comments from, all right. We have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. And then we previously approved the changes to the bulk pickup, so that will
Yes,
go out.
be part of
Okay,
the
good.
informational flyer.
Thank you.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on a contract submitted by Enhanced Wood Technologies for the purchase of 686 pieces of 2x6x12 Kebney deck boards for boardwalk ramps and platforms in the amount of $67,032.80. Mr. Gravier.
Council,
I know.
you're aware that the company, Enhanced Wood Technologies, and their product Kebney was our material of choice for our boardwalk a good number of years ago, with the hope that it would outlast traditional boards, treated boards, as you see in Ocean City or Rehoboth. The first installation of the Kebney product had product problems, And the wood lasts as it does, and it's a great product because of the way it's treated chemically. So the first batch, the first covering of the boardwalk had some issues with that chemical treatment. Since that point in time, the company has essentially replaced all the boards on our boardwalk with a product that's treated in a much better way, and it's not having the problems that we have seen with the first product that was installed. They've done that gratis. We've paid for the installation. We've had to pull the old boards and reinstall the new boards, but the company's been gracious in doing that. We have some ramps and some other areas that are still finished in the typical boardwalk board, and this contract that you have here for the 686 pieces takes care of all that and finishes the entire boardwalk in Kebney. At the same time, the company is giving us the product that retails for over 90, and the contract is for $67,000 for the product. So this allows us to finish the boardwalk in Kebney, and it's all now recovered in the better product. And again, hopefully we'll get the years and years of service we hope to get out of it.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we enter a contract with Enhanced Wood Technologies for the purchase of 686 pieces of 2x6x12 at a cost of $67,032.
And 80 cents.
Oh, kids, 80 cents. We're 80 cents. I just find that interesting that,
I know.
something that big
I
would go
know.
down to pennies, so,
I know.
yeah, but anyway.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions, comments?
Just on, unlike what we were just talking about, I just wanted to say I really appreciate the town putting its money where its mouth is on the Kebney. The Kebney is a FSC certified, which is Forest Stewardship Council. It's sustainably harvested. It's better than tearing down tropical hardwoods, and so it's I think it's a really good example of us, I think, doing some good virtue signaling there, even though I know it's been a pain, and I appreciate the extra effort that it's required, so thank you.
And also, this company who recognized the fact that the first products were defective, and they replaced it at no cost. So.
Yep, so I think it's
That says something about the company we're dealing with.
well worth the added cost.
Yes.
Is there any maintenance required on this, or,
No?
no?
No.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Allegedly, no. That's how all of our, like architecturally speaking, that's all of our no maintenance
Well,
materials.
other than power washing.
Yeah.
We asked early, especially when it began to deteriorate, if it was something we could do to enhance it, but no, it just started to come apart, so.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments? Anybody in the audience? Okay, hearing none. We have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it.
All right, you want me to do the next one?
Sure.
The next and final item on our agenda, consider a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters pursuant to 29 Delaware C 10,004, subsection B, subsection 9 and 6 relating to personnel matters.
I move that we go into executive session.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
for
you,
coming.
everyone.
We're dealing with that.